Hey filmmaker, Chung here. In this video we are going to compare the Amaran 200X, the SmallRig RC220B and the Zhiyun Molus G200. We are going to compare the startup time, the interface of each light, the brightness, and also the color accuracy and more. So let's start with actually the size of each light. As you can see, the Zhiyun Molus G200 is the smallest of the bunch. Even though the SmallRig and the Amaran looks like the similar design, you can see that the SmallRig is a bit bigger. Comparing the cases, the Zhiyun is also the smallest than the Amaran, but is actually just a box and not a case, and then the SmallRig case is the biggest. Now to the startup time test of each of the lights. As you can see, the Amaran is almost instantly on, then the Zhiyun. However, it takes 3 seconds for the SmallRig to turn on. Now we're going to compare the interfaces of each of the lights. First, the Amaran 200X. On the back we can find two dials, one for the Kelvin values and the other for the intensity. The dial itself, it does feels a bit slow when rotating it compared to the other brands, but you can also press the dial to jump to preset Kelvin values. Though this light does have effects, but those are only accessible via the app and not via the menu or buttons on the back of the light. On the SmallRig we can also find two dials on the back. However, these are set up a little bit different. The dial on the left is for the intensity, but also for the color temperature. You can press the button on the dial to change between the two. The dial speed on the SmallRig feels actually much more natural. You can actually quite quickly go to the actual color temperature that you want without having to rotate the dial quite a lot. And on the right we have a dial for the effects menu, where you can change the frequency, which changes the effect speeds of the effect, but also change between the effects and change between all kinds of different effects from fire, paparazzi and more. The interface for the Zhiyun Molus is not on the back of the light but on the power adapter, which makes it quite easy to change the brightness or the color temperature while the light is up high, so you don't have to pull the light down to change any of the settings. On the power adapter we can find two dials, the left one for dimming the light and the right one for changing the color temperature. However, this also suffers a little bit of the slowish kind of feel like the Amaran, and it does feel like that you have to rotate the dial quite a lot to get to the settings that you want. Holding down the right button you access the music mode, which actually flashes this light according to the ambient sound that is happening. Holding down both of the buttons you actually enter into the maximum mode, which brightens the light to a 300 watt output. And if you are looking for the effects on the G200, it's not there. Even on the app there are no special effects that you can find on the two other lights. However, if those effects are not important, then it is still a really good light. And now to the brightness test. I measured exactly 1 meter between the COB chip and my phone, so we can actually measure exactly the lux at 1 meter. Also, these tests are without the reflector because I feel like the reflector is a kind of a cheat, because they can actually focus the light on exactly 1 meter, so without the reflector it is much more of a proper test. The Amaran 200X at 5500 kelvins actually stays around 20,000 lux. Dropping the Kelvin to 4700, we actually drop to slightly below 19,000 lux. And moving to 3200 Kelvin, we actually drop even more down to 14,400-ish lux. And dropping down to 2700 Kelvin, we get around 11,200 lux. It is very noticeable that these lights are pushing more for the daylight color, because during daytime you probably need to push against the sun. However, at night you might not need to have such a bright light. And now to the SmallRig RC220B. At 5500 Kelvin, we are roughly around 21,400 lux. Dropping down to 4700 Kelvin, we drop to 21,300 lux. And dropping down to 3200 Kelvin, we end up at 14,950 lux. And dropping the Kelvin value to 2700 Kelvin, we drop to 11,350 lux. And now to the Zhiyun Molus G200, which is smaller than the other two, but at 5500 Kelvin it is at 24,400 lux. At 4700 it is at 22,950 lux. At 3200 Kelvin it is at 19,500 lux. And finally at 2700 Kelvin it's 17,400-ish lux. Oddly putting them side by side, even though I didn't change the camera settings at all, somehow like the SmallRig has like a different kind of exposure. It's noticeably darker than the Amaran, while it should be brighter than the Amaran or equal to the Amaran at certain points. Now a color accuracy test, which I'm using the auto white balance of my Ursa Mini Pro, and I'll just set a custom white balance and see what kind of results I get and if that number is close to what I have set on the light itself. So first the Amaran 200X, which on 5500 Kelvin it becomes a 5750 Kelvin with a -9 tint, which means the difference between the light and the camera is 250 Kelvin and -19 tint, because the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro standard tint is often on +10. On the SmallRig, the difference of Kelvin is a bit more, however the tint wise it is a bit better. And the Zhiyun Molus is worse with 450 Kelvin difference and even more difference in the tint with -23. Now the test with the Amaran 200X on 3200 Kelvin, and the Kelvin wise is actually pretty good with a 50 Kelvin difference, however there's quite a lot of tint difference with -23. The SmallRig on 3200 Kelvin is a bit worse with 150 Kelvin of difference and also a worse tint of -27. The Molus G200 is a bit better with 100 Kelvin of difference, however is quite worse with a -31 in tint. If color accuracy is important for you, then the Amaran 200X is the better one. And also we can see from this test that it isn't really that easy to mix and match different kind of brand of lights, because the color difference just might not match that really well or that easily. Overall, each of the lights has their own strength. However, if I have to choose one out of the three for my own use, I would choose the Zhiyun Molus G200. It is the smallest of the three, and also it is just much easier to transport multiple of them without having multiple big bags or big boxes. But also the G200 is much brighter than the other two, which makes it much more useful in very bright situations, especially if you have to work against the sun. However, the downside, it doesn't have any effects, but it is something that I don't use that often. And if there's any short film or anything that would need such effects, I would probably rent a different light or have a different light with me as an extra just for that shot. Comment below which of the lights you prefer, and also if you want to see more of these videos, please hit the like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!